Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Some women want peace, others are the peace, but push the wrong one and she'll show you a chaos your soul wasn't built to survive. Most people walk through life praying they never meet a woman who has mastered her own darkness. But here's the terrifying truth. Sigma females don't beg for peace treaties. They write the battle plans when diplomacy fails. Psychologists say the quietest people often have the deepest emotional archives. But what happens when a Sigma female, someone who already lives outside society's rules, finally gets tired of playing nice? Spoiler alert, it's not a screaming meltdown. It's more like watching a nuclear reactor go critical, silently, efficiently, and without giving anyone enough time to run. And let's be honest, most of you think psycho mode is messy, chaotic, and loud. But when a Sigma female snaps, it's clinical, surgical, almost beautifully terrifying. So buckle up, because today we're not talking about drama queens or emotional wrecks. We're talking about what happens when the most independent, self-contained, and misunderstood female archetype goes full psycho, and for once doesn't apologize for it. Let's dive in. Number 1. She learns to enjoy the collapse. When a Sigma female finally flips into full psycho mode, the scariest thing isn't the rage, the cold silence, or the revenge. It's the shift in her mindset where she actually starts to enjoy the chaos. This is the point where she stops trying to fix people, stops trying to protect the peace, and stops feeling bad for breaking things that deserve to be broken. She spent so much of her life cleaning up other people's messes, swallowing her feelings, and walking away quietly when disrespected. But when she reaches that final breaking point, she realizes something liberating. Maybe destruction isn't always wrong. Maybe tearing down the wrong relationships, fake friendships, and toxic environments is exactly what needed to happen. This isn't reckless chaos for the sake of chaos. It's precise. It's intentional. It's a woman finally giving herself permission to stop holding everything together. And in that freedom, something wild happens. She starts smiling through it. Not because she's cruel, but because for once, she's finally choosing herself. Even if it burns bridges, shatters expectations, or leaves people shocked at how far she's willing to go to protect her peace. People around her often mistake this for heartlessness. They'll call her cold, distant, or ruthless. But they never stop to ask what kind of hell she went through in silence before she snapped. They never asked how many times she forgave without an apology, how often she kept her mouth shut to keep the peace, or how long she tolerated being underestimated. All they see now is the woman who's no longer afraid to swing the axe. And here's the real kicker. Once she tastes that freedom, she doesn't go back. She learns to live in that space where her peace matters more than pleasing anyone. That's what terrifies people the most. Not her anger, not her revenge, but the fact that she's perfectly fine walking away, never explaining herself again, and sleeping peacefully after letting everything burn that needed to burn. This is where the Sigma female is at her most dangerous. Not because she's lost control, but because she finally found it. Number 2. She stops romanticizing human potential. A Sigma female, by default, sees the world through a lens of potential. She notices the greatness people could reach if they just woke up, faced their flaws, and did the work. She gives quiet chances, silent hope, internal encouragement. But once she's been betrayed one too many times, that lens shatters, the switch flips, and suddenly she stops seeing people as hidden heroes waiting to rise, and starts seeing them for what they truly are: distractions, liabilities, and in many cases, wasted potential that will never evolve. She no longer wastes energy trying to inspire growth in people who clearly don't want it. She stops giving free loyalty to people who can't even master themselves. Where she once looked at others and thought, maybe they'll change, now she looks and thinks, they won't. Move on. It's not bitterness, it's clarity, brutal, cold, and freeing clarity. The kindness that used to motivate her to uplift others gets replaced by pragmatism. She starts operating like an investor who no longer funds broken projects. If a person drains her time, peace, or purpose, they get cut out quietly and efficiently. No dramatic speeches, no second chances, no public fallout, just silence. And from that moment on, those people become background noise in her life story. Nothing more, nothing less. This shift terrifies those around her because it's permanent. People who used to take her patience for granted suddenly find themselves shut out, unable to access her light. And they'll try to guilt her, play victim, or accuse her of being heartless. But she doesn't flinch. She's simply done. When a Sigma female stops romanticizing human potential, she stops waiting for people to be better. She stops investing in anyone who hasn't already proven their worth through action, not words. And in doing so, she protects her energy from the constant disappointment of expecting depth in a shallow world. Number 3. She redefines her moral code without warning. When a Sigma female hits psycho mode, the moral code that once guided her actions gets wiped clean without warning. The values she lived by, kindness, empathy, patience, suddenly feel irrelevant. Not because she never believed in them, but because the world showed her that playing by those rules only made her a target. So she rewrites the script in real time. What once mattered no longer applies. What once held her back now fuels her decisions. She doesn't sit there debating whether it's right or wrong. She simply decides what works in the moment. Mercy gets deleted because it never protected her. Empathy gets switched off like a light. Not because she doesn't feel, but because feeling would slow her down. She becomes a one-woman force of logic and strategy, cold when she needs to be, ruthless when she must. And because no one knows what her new rules are, she becomes impossible to predict. That unpredictability is what makes her dangerous. Most people are easy to manipulate because their values make them predictable. You can guilt them, shame them, or appeal to their kindness. But when a Sigma female redefines her morals, none of those tactics work. You can't play the victim to trap her in empathy. You can't wave morality in her face expecting her to bow to it. She's written a new code, and only she knows what's in it. This isn't about becoming evil. It's about survival. She adapts to the betrayal, the disrespect, the constant underestimation, and upgrades herself accordingly. If that means cutting people off mid-sentence, exposing lies without mercy, or walking away from something she once cherished, so be it. And the most terrifying part? She doesn't explain herself. She doesn't justify it. She doesn't care if people think she's changed. Because in her mind, she didn't change. She evolved. What you see as psycho mode, she sees as clarity. Cold, sharp, and untouchable clarity. Number 4. She becomes what everyone feared, but smarters. Most people fear a strong woman until she stays quiet long enough for them to convince themselves she's harmless. They fear her silence, but they tell themselves it's just shyness. They fear her independence, but they dismiss it as coldness. They fear her intellect, but they try to ignore it because it makes them feel small. But when a Sigma female finally drops her self-restraint, when she stops holding back out of politeness or compassion, she becomes exactly what they always feared, but far more calculated than they ever imagined. She doesn't explode in a reckless tantrum. No, she sharpens herself into a storm with a blueprint. Every move she makes is strategic, every word measured for maximum effect. She stops wasting energy on convincing people of her worth, and instead redirects that power into building, destroying, or conquering whatever she sets her eyes on. This isn't chaos. It's war, with a clear plan and a cold smile. The people who once underestimated her suddenly realized the mistake too late. They thought her silence was weakness. It was calculation. They thought her distance was disinterest. It was observation. They thought her kindness meant she wouldn't fight back. They just never pushed her far enough to see how hard she could hit. Now that they have, she's done waiting for permission to act. Her storm isn't emotional, it's intellectual. And that's what makes it lethal. She doesn't just lash out blindly. She targets weak spots. She dismantles power structures. She turns former friends into irrelevant bystanders and enemies into footnotes in her story. This is when people start whispering, calling her cold, dangerous, or heartless. But deep down, they always knew she had this side. They just prayed they'd never have to meet it face to face. And here's the real fear. She's smarter now. Smarter than when she was kind. Smarter than when she tried to protect feelings. Smarter because she finally stopped holding herself back for the sake of people who never deserved her peace in the first place. Number 5. She stops translating herself for the mediocre. For most of her life, a Sigma female learns to water herself down so people don't feel small next to her. She simplifies her thoughts, hides her intensity, and softens her words because experience taught her that most people can't handle the full version of who she really is. She's used to walking on eggshells, making herself smaller so others feel bigger, but when she finally snaps, when psycho mode kicks in, she stops translating herself for the mediocre. She stops dumbing down her brilliance to be relatable. She stops filtering her honesty to protect fragile egos. She stops hiding her intensity behind polite smiles and fake patience. What comes out instead is the raw, uncut version of her intellect, her energy, and her soul, and it burns through social niceties like a wildfire through dry grass. People who thought they knew her are stunned. The quiet girl in the corner now speaks with authority that shakes the room. The one who always listened suddenly dominates the conversation. The woman they thought was nice now makes them feel intellectually naked and emotionally exposed. And the mediocre, they run. Or worse, they stay frozen, unable to comprehend the level of depth and fire standing in front of them. She doesn't care about being misunderstood anymore. She's not interested in making anyone comfortable. Her truth, her power, and her intelligence stand fully unleashed. And whether anyone can handle it is no longer her concern. She's done speaking in half-truths to protect feelings. She speaks in whole realities now. And if those realities crack people's illusions, so be it. She spent too long hiding her real self behind masks that only served others. Psycho mode strips those masks off forever. In that moment, she realizes something freeing. The people worth keeping will rise to meet her intensity. The rest will fall away, choking on the smoke of their own mediocrity. And for the first time, she doesn't stop them from leaving. Number 6. She exploits emotional weak spots with tactical precision. A Sigma female stores everything people reveal to her. Your fears, your doubts, the cracks in your confidence, all of it sits quietly in the back of her mind. Not because she plans to use it against you, but because she observes people deeply by nature. Normally, she keeps those observations locked away, choosing empathy over exploitation. But when she's pushed past her breaking point, that empathy gets shut off like a dead switch. And what you're left with is someone who knows exactly where to strike, and won't hesitate. She doesn't need to yell, insult, or throw tantrums. She uses words like precision-guided missiles. She'll remind you of the very thing you're most insecure about, calmly and directly, in a way that cuts deeper than any insult could. She knows your weaknesses not from stalking or manipulation, but because you trusted her with your truth. And when you betray her, she makes sure you feel the full weight of that broken trust. She knows exactly what to say to make your confidence crumble. She knows which memory to mention, which flaw to highlight, and which silent fear to expose. And the terrifying part, she says it so calmly, so clearly, that you can't call her emotional or irrational. She weaponizes truth itself, and there's no defense against it. But this isn't some messy revenge plot. This is psychological precision. She doesn't waste energy on petty attacks. She strikes once, hits the exact target, and leaves you to deal with the fallout on your own. No drama, no chaos, just cold clarity and devastating accuracy. Most people never expect it because they mistake her silence for softness. They think her distance means she won't fight back. But when she finally does, it's surgical, final, and unforgettable. And afterward, she won't comfort you or explain why she did it. She'll simply walk away, having said exactly what needed to be said, leaving you alone with the truth you tried to hide from yourself. That's what makes a Sigma female in psycho mode dangerous. She doesn't just fight to win. She fights to expose. Number 7. She stops protecting you from her darkness. Sigma females walk through life carrying a darkness most people will never understand. It's not evil. It's not cruelty. It's survival. It's the kind of darkness that comes from years of betrayal, loneliness, disappointment, and being forced to rely only on themselves. Normally, she keeps that part of her locked away, not because she's ashamed of it, but because she knows it could do damage most people aren't built to handle. She protects people from it, not for their sake, but for her own peace. But when she's provoked past her limits, when people confuse her kindness for weakness one too many times, she stops hiding it. She opens the vault. And what comes out isn't some reckless emotional breakdown, it's sharp. cold, ancient, like something that has been waiting patiently for permission to destroy. This darkness isn't about revenge. It's about correction. It's the raw, primal part of her that stops tolerating lies, excuses, and mediocrity. She stops adjusting herself to keep people comfortable. She stops softening her words. She stops holding back the thoughts that could shatter a fragile ego in seconds. And she lets it all surface. The people who triggered it usually aren't ready. They expected a meltdown they could dismiss as emotional instability. What they get instead is calm destruction, controlled fury, calculated responses that dismantle their defenses one by one. No screaming, no chaos, just brutal, unstoppable truth powered by years of restraint. And the terrifying part? She doesn't care about repairing the damage afterward. Once the darkness is out, it runs its course. People are left picking up the pieces of their pride, their lies, or their fake personas, and she's already gone, leaving no apology behind. This side of her was always there, hidden beneath the patience, the quiet strength, and the strategic silence. She kept it locked away to avoid unnecessary harm. But when pushed far enough, she stops protecting people from the storm she's perfectly capable of becoming. And once it's unleashed, there's no controlling it, only surviving it. Number 8, she turns her inner world into a fortress of vengeance. When a Sigma female snaps, she doesn't descend into chaotic revenge like most people expect. There's no screaming into pillows, no impulsive destruction, no reckless payback. Instead, she withdraws deep into her mind, a place most people will never gain access to, and begins constructing something far scarier than rage, a plan. Her inner world becomes a fortress, every wall built from the lessons betrayal taught her, every corridor designed to protect her peace, and at the center, a perfectly engineered revenge so precise, so patient, and so quietly devastating that it feels like fate itself is carrying it out. This isn't about pettiness or making a scene. This is cold execution. She studies every angle, every weakness, and every flaw of the people who crossed her. She waits, silently calculating the perfect timing and method, ensuring when the blow lands, it's impossible to trace back to her directly. There's no messy confrontation, no public fallout, just subtle surgical dismantling of your confidence, your plans, your peace. And the worst part? It will all seem natural, like life is simply falling apart for you by coincidence. But deep down, you'll know. You'll feel her fingerprints on every disaster you face. You'll replay your betrayal 1,000 times and realize exactly where you went wrong. What makes her terrifying isn't the act of revenge itself. It's how she designs it. Like a cathedral, every detail is perfect. Every move has meaning. No step is wasted. Her revenge is art, and you become the unwilling centerpiece. And when it's all done, she doesn't stick around to watch you fall. She's already moved on, fortress intact, peace restored, and emotions sealed away. You'll be left wondering if she ever cared in the first place. Spoiler? She did. That's why she built the fortress. But once you forced her to retreat inside it, the version of her that cared died quietly behind those walls. What's left is a woman who learned that sometimes karma is too slow. So she built her own. Number 9. She intellectually dominates to the point of psychological erosion. A Sigma female doesn't waste her time with insults or petty arguments. When pushed into psycho mode, she goes for something far more devastating, intellectual domination. She doesn't yell, she doesn't curse, she simply asks questions. But not just any questions. The kind of questions that cut straight through your ego and force you to confront the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. She'll sit there calmly, looking you dead in the eye, and ask something so precise, so brutally honest, that your mind scrambles to find an answer. But there isn't one. Not without exposing your lies, your hypocrisy, or your fear. Every answer you try to give falls apart halfway through because deep down you know the truth doesn't line up with the story you've been telling yourself. And the silence she gives after each question? That's where the real damage happens. She lets you sit in it, drown in it. You'll start explaining, over-explaining, trying to fill the quiet with words to protect your pride. But none of them land. They only make it worse. What's terrifying is that she's not angry when she does this. There's no emotional heat behind her words, just pure, surgical clarity. She isn't trying to hurt you out of spite. She's showing you exactly who you are and giving you nowhere to hide. You destroy yourself trying to defend the image you wish you had, but she sees right through it. And the harder you try, the deeper you sink. And when you finally break, when the weight of your own flaws collapses on you, she doesn't celebrate. She doesn't stay to comfort you or finish the job. She just walks away, quiet, unbothered, as if your emotional collapse was just another predictable outcome in a game she never really wanted to play. What you're left with is a shattered ego and a mind that keeps replaying that conversation long after she's gone. You'll hear her questions in your head at night, long after she's moved on. That's how deeply she cuts, without ever raising her voice. Number 10. She activates her inner data assassin. A Sigma female's silence is never empty. While most people speak to fill the air, she listens, watches, records. Every insult you thought went unnoticed. Every lie you told casually. Every weakness you accidentally exposed. She stores it all with the cold efficiency of a data assassin, quietly building her arsenal. Normally she keeps that vault locked because she has no interest in pointless conflict. But push her too far. Betray her trust, insult her intelligence, or try to manipulate her. And that vault opens. And what comes out isn't emotional chaos, it's weaponized memory. She doesn't lash out wildly. She selects her facts like a sniper selecting bullets. One by one, she fires off truths so sharp, so undeniable, that they cut straight through your defenses. She remembers the exact words you used to humiliate her, and she'll throw them back at you in a way that makes you wish you'd never spoken. She recalls the cracks in your story you thought she missed, and exposes them without hesitation. She remembers the private fears you whispered when you thought she cared, and she'll remind you of them when you least expect it. And the scariest part? She does it with calm precision. No shouting, no theatrics, just cold facts, stacked like evidence in a courtroom where she's the judge, jury, and executioner. People who underestimated her intelligence scramble to defend themselves, but it's too late. You can't argue with the truth she's presenting because it's yours. You gave it to her. You just didn't expect her to use it against you. And when she's finished, she doesn't wait for your apology. She simply turns and leaves, her mission complete. You're left standing in the wreckage of your own words, your own actions, exposed by the very person you thought was too quiet to fight back. This is what makes a Sigma female's psycho mode terrifying. Her rage isn't loud, it's precise. She doesn't attack emotionally. She attacks with data. And when she's done, there's nothing left to argue. Just silence and the bitter sting of your own mistakes. Number 11. She declares war by disappearing. When a Sigma female finally reaches the edge, she doesn't throw a tantrum, she doesn't plead for understanding, and she definitely doesn't waste her breath explaining herself. She simply disappears. Completely. Without warning, without a single word of goodbye. And that silence? It's deafening. It echoes louder than any argument could. Her disappearance isn't an escape, it's a declaration of war. You thought you were prepared for her anger. Maybe even her revenge. But you weren't prepared for her absence. You weren't prepared to be shut out like you never mattered. And that's the part that breaks people. Not what she says, what she refuses to say. Most people expect closure when things fall apart. They expect explanations, final conversations, maybe even an emotional goodbye they can twist into their own narrative. But when a Sigma female vanishes, she leaves nothing behind to hold on to. No message, no warning, just a blank space where she used to be. You'll search for her in places she used to go. You'll scroll through old messages hoping for a sign she still cares. You'll replay conversations, wondering when exactly you lost her. But she's gone. And she doesn't check to see if you noticed. Her absence is her answer. Her silence is her boundary. And her disappearance is her revenge. She knows that cutting you off completely will haunt you more than any confrontation. Because in that silence, you're forced to sit with your guilt, your mistakes, and your loss. She doesn't come back with a second chance. She doesn't leave the door cracked open. She erases, quietly, completely, like you were a chapter that no longer fits in her story, and by the time you realize what you lost, it's too late to fix it. That's the cruelty of her psycho mode. She doesn't destroy you with noise. She destroys you with her absence and the cold reality that life moves on without you. Number 12. She doesn't just burn bridges, she collapses the whole highway system. When a Sigma female finally decides she's done, she doesn't just burn the bridge behind her like most people. That's too small, too easy, too reversible. No, she collapses the entire highway system that led to her. Every road, every shortcut, every secret path someone might try to use to reach her again gets destroyed without mercy. She erases the possibility of return, not just for the person who hurt her, but for anyone who even thought about following that route. She does this because she knows something most people ignore. Walking away leaves the door open for others to chase you, explain themselves, or worse, try to come back when it's convenient for them. But when she collapses the entire route, there's nothing left to come back to. No contact, no mutual friends bridging the gap, no lingering conversations, no half-open social media channels, just silence and distance so absolute it feels like exile. And what really stings is how final it feels. People who once thought they had access to her realize in that moment they were temporary passengers in her life. And their exit wasn't just requested, it was enforced. The echoes of her absence linger in their minds, not because she slammed the door, but because they finally understand they'll never find her again. Not the version they knew, not the world she built for them to feel safe in. That world is gone. But she doesn't do this out of cruelty. She does it out of necessity. She gave her time, her loyalty, her patience. And when all of that was taken for granted, she knew the only way to protect herself was to leave no path back. People feel that loss deep, not because she was loud about it, but because she was essential in a way they didn't realize until she was gone. And when they finally look back, all they'll see is scorched earth where a safe haven used to be. That's the cold truth. When a Sigma female erases a connection, it stays erased. In the end, when a Sigma female goes full psycho mode, it's not the chaos you expect, it's the clarity you fear. It's not loud, reckless destruction. It's quiet, surgical precision. While most people drown in their emotions, she rises above hers, wielding her intellect, silence, and ruthless clarity like weapons you never saw coming. She doesn't lose control, she reclaims it. She doesn't beg for understanding, she erases the need for it. And she doesn't seek revenge for validation. She delivers it like cold justice on her terms, without regret. Most people spend their lives underestimating women like her, mistaking quiet for weak, solitude for loneliness, and patience for passivity. But when she finally stops holding herself back, the world around her feels the shift. Conversations go silent, relationships collapse, power dynamics flip upside down, and in that storm of precision and darkness, there is no apology, no mercy, no explanation. Just the raw, unfiltered force of a woman who decided that protecting others from her full power was no longer worth the cost to herself. So if you ever wondered what happens when a Sigma female stops playing by the rules, you don't need to wonder anymore. You'll feel it. And trust me, when she's done, the silence she leaves behind will be the loudest lesson of your life. If this gave you chills or made you rethink everything you thought you knew about Sigma females, then don't just keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and join the tribe that sees beyond the surface. Like this video if it spoke the truth no one else dares to say. Drop a comment below. Whether you're a Sigma female yourself or someone who's crossed paths with one, I want to hear your thoughts and your stories. And most importantly, share this with someone who still thinks silence equals weakness. They might need the reminder. This is not just another channel. This is where we break the noise, expose the truth, and give power to the voices that don't beg to be heard. Stay sharp, stay untamed, and I'll see you in the next one.